The library was supposed to be a sanctuary. For most students, it was just a quiet place to cram before exams, but for Emily Carter, it was the only corner of school where she could breathe. She was the kind of girl who walked the hallways unnoticed, her soft steps drowned out by the clatter of lockers and bursts of laughter. Her classmates knew her as the quiet one, the girl who sat at the back, never raising her hand, never speaking unless she had to. To them, she was invisible. But to a group of bullies who thrived on targeting anyone they thought weaker, her silence was an open invitation. It started as whispers behind her back. They would mock her clothes, the way she carried books pressed tightly against her chest, or how she never looked anyone in the eyes. Mouse Girl, they called her, as if she were too timid to defend herself. Emily had endured it with a forced stillness, pretending the words rolled off her, even though each one felt like a stone sinking deeper into her chest. But what happened that Thursday afternoon in the library would change everything. She was hunched over a history book, her pen moving steadily across the page, when she noticed the shadows stretching over her desk. 3 figures loomed: Chloe, the self-appointed queen bee, and her 2 loyal sidekicks, Marcus and Jenna. Chloe's smirk said everything before she spoke. Well. Look who thinks she's smart enough to study all alone. Emily kept her eyes fixed on her notes, willing them to disappear. But Chloe slammed her hand on the desk, jolting the silence of the library. I'm talking to you, Mouse. A few students glanced up, but quickly buried their heads, unwilling to intervene. That was the worst part, how the world turned away, pretending not to notice cruelty unfolding. Marcus stepped closer, his tall frame blocking her escape route. You think you're better than everyone, don't you? Sitting here, pretending you're too good for us. His voice dripped with mockery. Jenna laughed softly, circling the desk like a predator toying with prey. Emily's heart pounded in her ears. She tried to gather her books, but Chloe pressed her hand flat against the open page. Not so fast. We're not done. The 3 of them boxed her in, the tall shelves on either side cutting off any chance of escape. For years, Emily had trained herself to endure moments like this. She thought silence was protection, that if she stayed small, the storm would pass. But something in Chloe's eyes that day sparked a fire inside her. It wasn't just about teasing anymore, it was about control, about crushing someone who couldn't, or wouldn't, fight back. Emily slowly lifted her gaze, locking eyes with Chloe. It was the first time she had done so, and the shift startled her bully. For the first time, Chloe saw something other than fear. Resolve. Move. Emily said softly, her voice steady. Chloe blinked in disbelief, then laughed. Oh, did the mouse finally squeak? Marcus chuckled, leaning in closer, but Emily pushed her chair back suddenly, the legs screeching against the floor. The sharp sound sliced through the library, making everyone turn. Emily stood up, her shoulders squared, and with one swift motion, she yanked her wrist free from Chloe's grip. You don't get to trap me here, Emily said, louder this time, her voice carrying across the room. Every eye was on them now, and Chloe's smug expression faltered. Marcus tried to grab her arm again, but Emily stepped back, her instincts kicking in. She had been taking self-defense classes secretly for months, something she had never told anyone. She had grown tired of feeling powerless, of carrying the weight of fear everywhere she went, and now, when it mattered most, those lessons came flooding back. When Marcus lunged, Emily sidestepped, using his own momentum to push him into the edge of the table. He stumbled, wincing as the books scattered. Gasps rippled through the library. Jenna froze, suddenly unsure. You should stop, Emily warned, her tone calm but sharp as steel. You've had your fun long enough? The silence that followed was deafening. Chloe opened her mouth to retort, but for once no words came. She had built her power on intimidation, but now, under the weight of Emily's unshakable stare in the watching crowd, she felt it slipping away. Finally, Chloe scoffed, pretending to laugh it off. Whatever. Not worth it. She motioned for Marcus and Jenna to follow her, but the damage was already done. Their hold over Emily, and over everyone who had ever been too afraid to stand up, was broken. Emily sat back down slowly, her hands trembling from the adrenaline, but she didn't hide it. She didn't lower her head this time. She allowed herself to breathe, to feel the strength that had been buried inside her all along. The librarian, who had been watching carefully from behind the desk, walked over and placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. You did the right thing, she whispered. For the first time in years, Emily believed it. Word spread quickly through the school. The quiet girl wasn't so quiet anymore, and the bullies who once fed on fear had lost their grip. Some students started approaching her, not with pity but with admiration, asking if she could help them learn the same self-defense skills. Emily realized something powerful. Her silence had made her a target, but her courage made her a leader. In the days that followed, she still returned to the library. It was still her sanctuary, but now it wasn't because she needed a place to hide. It was because she had claimed it as her own. And every time she walked past the shelves where it had all happened, she reminded herself of the lesson she had learned in the hardest way possible. Bullies underestimate the quiet ones, but quiet doesn't mean weak. Quiet can mean patient, observant and ready. And when the moment comes, even the softest voice can shake the walls of an entire room. Emily Carter had always believed that silence was her armor. While her classmates shouted across hallways, swapped gossip in buzzing corners, or laughed so loudly the sound rattled lockers, Emily kept to herself. She had learned that speaking up often led to ridicule, and being noticed only made her a target. She was the kind of student whose presence could be overlooked even when she was sitting right there in the middle of the classroom. Teachers rarely called on her, classmates barely remembered her name, and her absence went unnoticed until her empty desk became too obvious. To Emily, invisibility felt like safety, but at Westfield High, invisibility wasn't enough. The bullies were like predators circling the school's social food chain, always seeking someone weaker to pick apart. Chloe Whitmore led them, the kind of girl who moved through the hallways as if she owned the air itself. With her expensive clothes, flawless hair, and a cruel wit, Chloe had built a reputation on control. And by her side were Marcus, the tall boy who enjoyed throwing his weight around, and Jenna, who laughed at every mean comment just to stay in Chloe's favor. Their trio had picked on others before, but in Emily they saw something irresistible. A girl too quiet to resist, too soft to fight back, too small to matter. The teasing began as passing insults. "Mouse girl," Chloe would whisper when Emily walked by, and Jenna's laughter would echo like nails scratching glass. Marcus would knock books out of Emily's hands in the crowded hall, and she would scramble on the floor to pick them up, cheeks burning as everyone stepped over her. She thought she could endure it, that they'd get bored and move on. But bullies don't stop when you're quiet, they escalate. The library became Emily's retreat, the one place she thought was untouchable. It smelled of old paper and dust, the sound of pages turning like whispers of safety. She spent her afternoons tucked between shelves, hidden behind a fortress of books, sinking into worlds that weren't her own. In those worlds, heroines found courage, the weak triumphed over the strong, and the quiet ones had voices that moved mountains. Emily longed to borrow even an ounce of their bravery. But one Thursday afternoon, the sanctuary betrayed her. She was bent over a history book, scribbling notes, when a shadow fell across the page. Slowly she looked up, and her heart sank. "Chloe, Marcus, Jenna, well, if it isn't our little mouse," Chloe sneered, dropping her designer bag onto the table with a thud that made Emily flinch. "Don't you get tired of hiding here every day?" Emily lowered her eyes to the paper. If she stayed silent, maybe they'd leave. But Marcus leaned forward, his shadow stretching across her desk. "Look at her. Doesn't even have the guts to talk back." He flicked his finger against her pen, sending it rolling onto the floor. Jenna giggled as if it were the funniest thing in the world. "Pick it up," Chloe ordered. Emily's chest tightened. She bent down, reaching for the pen, but Chloe kicked it further away under the shelves. "Oops, guess you'll have to crawl for it." A heat rose in Emily's cheeks. She hated how her body betrayed her, trembling under their gaze. She forced herself to stand again, pretending not to care, but Chloe slammed a hand down on her open book. "We're not finished." The sound echoed through the library. A few students looked up, but quickly ducked back down. That was how it always was. Everyone saw. No one acted. Marcus stepped closer, crowding her space. "What's it like, being invisible? Bet no one would even notice if you just disappeared." His words stabbed deeper than the laughter. Emily's fingers clenched at her side. She felt the familiar urge to shrink smaller, to let it pass. But something inside her snapped. Maybe it was the cruelty of their words, or the fact that everyone was watching, pretending not to see. Maybe it was the months of bottled frustration, the ache of carrying fear like a second skin. Whatever it was, she lifted her head and met Chloe's eyes. "Move," she said. The word was soft but steady, and in that moment everything shifted. Chloe blinked, startled. Then she laughed, tossing her perfect hair back. "Oh, did the mouse just squeak?" Marcus smirked. "Say it again." Emily's pulse thundered, but she didn't back down. "I said move." Her voice rang louder now, carrying across the library. The air changed. Students looked up again. But this time they didn't look away. Chloe's smile faltered, just for a second. She had built her reign on fear, and for the first time, fear wasn't staring back at her. Marcus reached for Emily's wrist, but she had been preparing for this moment more than they knew. For months, Emily had been sneaking into self-defense classes at the community center. She had never told anyone, not her parents, not her teachers, not a single friend. She hadn't done it because she wanted to fight. She had done it because she wanted to stop being afraid. As Marcus grabbed at her, Emily twisted her arm sharply, slipping free. The move was fluid, instinctive, and it sent him stumbling forward. Gasps filled the library. Jenna's laughter died on her lips. Emily stood tall, her breath steady despite the pounding in her chest. "I'm not your victim anymore." The words sliced through the silence. Chloe stared, caught between disbelief and rage. "You think this changes anything?" she hissed. Emily's eyes didn't waver. "It changes everything." For a long moment, the room held its breath. Then Chloe scoffed, grabbing her bag. "Let's go. She's not worth it." But her voice cracked slightly, betraying the cracks in her armor. Marcus followed, rubbing his shoulder where he had stumbled. Jenna trailed behind, no longer laughing, and just like that, the predators retreated. Emily's knees shook, but she didn't sit down. She didn't lower her eyes. For the first time in years, she stood in the center of the room and let people see her. Not as the quiet girl, not as the target, but as someone who had finally reclaimed her voice. The librarian approached, her kind eyes soft but fierce. She placed a hand on Emily's shoulder and whispered, "I'm proud of you." A word spread through the school like wildfire. The quiet girl had stood up, the bullies had backed down, and slowly, everything began to shift. Some students started approaching Emily, not to mock but to admire. They asked her about self-defense classes, about courage, about how she had found the strength. Emily realized something powerful. She hadn't just stood up for herself. She had given others permission to believe they could stand too. Days turned into weeks, and though the bullies never apologized, they never cornered her again. Their whispers lost their edge, their laughter lost its bite, because power built on fear cannot survive when fear is gone. Emily still went to the library every day, but it wasn't to hide anymore. It was to study, to read, to breathe freely in a place that now belonged to her. She carried herself differently, shoulders back, head high, and though she still preferred quiet, she understood something she had never known before. Quiet does not mean weak. Quiet means patient. Quiet means observant. Quiet means ready. And when the quiet ones finally speak, the world has no choice but to listen.